Hey folks, here's another video, and this is going to be a short video. This is from how neoliberalism invaded and got in America. It's the David Packman show. This is from 10 months ago. This is the end of this. This is in the end of the show, and Hartmann explains at the end. The interview is the interview, but he's interviewing Thom Hartmann, and he explains. Hartmann explains about neoliberalism and how it started. By the end, he said something interesting, and like this whole thing started an idea concept from 1940s. So-called neoliberalism. Neoliberalism started in the 40s, and it's brought to America and UK and other countries, implemented in by the 1980s. And this thing turns into, and he said in the video, if he the rest of the interview, the early on in the interview, he's saying that this thing, neoliberalism mainly goes into fascism, basically. Eventually turn into fascism. But this video is online if you want to see this video. Look up David Packman show, and this has a link on the. No, it doesn't. Okay, at David Packman show hashtag. Okay, it's on Twitter. Okay, he's on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. But he's on look up David Packman show online, and he's on there. And he talked about it more in depth about how it started. Well, this thing sums up the right wing, the far right they're doing, and this obvious conclusion and what this is going on now. This whole thing is involving maybe into fascism, like not just here and like terrible, not just Western, well, over here in the West, over here in North America, and in Europe too. But this is a big plan from from many years, 40, 50 years in the making, and it was a simple idea. He's saying that, and back then it was really rejected, this idea of neoliberalism. But now it's full effect, and it's getting even worse. And turning into fascism, maybe seems like it's going into that. But this is the ending of Hartmann, and the Hartmann interview.
Impact the culture around our economic systems and things like the future of neoliberalism?
Well, technology itself, I mean, this is not an area where the Luddites would jump in and say, hooray, this is our cause. Technology itself is kind of agnostic with regard to neoliberalism and vice versa. However, social media, more than half of Americans now get their news primarily from Facebook.
Yeah.
Pretty damn shocking. Social media.
And one thing, I'm surprised he didn't talk about AI. But I guess back then, 10 months ago, there wasn't a big furor, not like now, the AI thing. Now it's more of a panic, the AI. And I'm gonna have another video on AI coming up.
Is a relatively cheap place to spread a message. And neoliberalism has made a small number of people and a small number of corporations mind-bogglingly rich. I mean, richer than the pharaohs, richer than any king or kingdom in the history of the world. The British royal family, being worth $14 billion, are pikers. They're a joke compared to some of the billionaires in the United States. So these guys pouring millions of dollars into ads and trolls and professional bloggers, as it were, on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, you name it, TikTok. This has been going on for some time and will continue to go on. They may not have hired these people to say, hey, you're going to promote neoliberalism. It tends to be more focused. You're going to be the guy who's, the Grover Norquist who's going to talk about never raising taxes on billionaires. You're going to be the guy who talks about how evil unions are and blah, blah, blah. And you're going to be the guy who talks about how we've got to have free trade or, else the world is going to collapse, or et cetera, et cetera. So, to the extent that technology plays a role in this, it's largely limited to the role of propaganda.
Oh my God, these commercials.
Is neoliberalism self-reinforcing in the sense that by its very nature, it puts many people in a position of not being able to take a day off from work because they can't afford to lose the wages, their health insurance is at risk, in order to protest the very system that created those conditions, and in that sense it reinforces itself?
Yeah, and not only that, it follows on the opinions and goals of the early advocates of neoliberalism, particularly Barry Goldwater and William F. Buckley. Back in 1951, Russell Kirk wrote this book, The Conservative Mind. I write about this in my book on oligarchy. And he suggested that the American middle class was growing too fast. In 51, our middle class was larger than any in the world. It was growing really, really rapidly. It was still only 20-30% of Americans, but it was growing. It was growing faster than rich people were getting rich. And he wrote that at a certain point, the middle class is going to be large enough and people are going to be no longer afraid of poverty enough that you're going to see three consequences. Young people are going to start defying their elders, which will produce social chaos. Women are going to forget that their primary place is in the kitchen and the bedroom, which is going to create social chaos. And minorities are going to forget that they have a place in society at the bottom. They're supposed to be the maids and the janitors, and that's going to cause social chaos when they start demanding, access to the boardroom and media and things. He didn't explicitly lay it out quite like that. Many of his followers did, but he established the frame in that book. And at the time in 51, when he proposed this, everybody thought he was a crackpot, except for Buckley and Goldwater. But by the time 1967 rolled around, and young people like me at that time were burning our draft cards, women were burning their bras, and this went doubled down in 72 when the Supreme Court legalized birth control, and 73 when it legalized abortion, women demanding access to the workplace. And of course, the civil rights movement was really, roaring in the 60s and 70s. And at that point, Republicans started looking around going, holy crap, Russell Kirk was right. And so part of Reagan's mandate when he came into office, when the middle class was 65% of America and was openly defying the power structures of this country, was to cut the middle class down to size. And neoliberalism was the perfect tool to do that. And that's exactly what happened, as I mentioned. Our middle class is no longer the middle. It's no longer 65% of America. It's 45% of America. And it's in debt as it is. So those students have shut up because they're in debt. The women are, right now in a pitched battle, over abortion specifically, but over women's rights more generally. And the civil rights movement rolls on too, and we're seeing all the pushback against that in right-wing channels like Fox News.
We've been speaking about Thom Hartmann's latest book, The Hidden History of Neoliberalism, How Reaganism Gutted America and How to Restore Its Greatness. Tom, always appreciate your time.
Yeah, folks. So what do you think about that, folks? Yep, neoliberalism. And this thing is a big plan from the right from a very long time. And he's right, how it's gutted America and destroyed the the economies, the Western economies of other countries. I can say, well, yeah, in a sense, destroyed. We have economies that benefit the top 1%, in the middle class and the lower class. We're just surviving. So, and the poor being thrown away. So that's what this is doing. And folks, that'll be all until the next video.